if you enjoyed this podcast, we could really use your help. We'd really love your support. This podcast is not funded by anybody other than you. So the fact that you're hearing it on the schedule that you're hearing it is because people like you really love this podcast and want to support it. So if you can, please go to kehillahrva.org/donate. That's kehillahrva.org/donate. Links are down here. Just $5 a month, guys. Seriously. If you want my time, if you want me to do this, I'd really appreciate it. Thanks a lot and enjoy the show. I'm Rabbi Patrick, and welcome to Kehillah. Oh my goodness, friends, I cannot believe how amazing our 2 Passover seders were. Shout out to everyone who came, all the volunteers, all of the donors who helped to support it, to make it possible. I don't even know where to begin. So, also, I am still so wrecked. I am so tired because there was just so much. So I'll tell you, this particular podcast episode came about a couple of different ways. One is just the recognition that I'm pooped. And so that's part of it. So academically, thinking about what this episode would be, because remember, this episode exists to be adult education, right? Because we just kind of realized, people are busy. They don't want to sit and go to class and, whatever. And it's 6 p.m. and you're hungry, but all the rabbis got is some cookies and coffee and soda pop. Yeah, come on, right? So we do this instead because this is a little bit better, people's schedules, things like that. So I owe it to you to come up with an adult ed class that you would enjoy, thus a podcast episode. But understanding, of course, that Passover takes a lot out of us. And also, once the 2 seders are over, people have moved on. It's okay. I get it. You've moved on. We'll see you for Shavuos. But in the meantime, people are a little wrecked. So what do you do with what you owe to people, recognizing that people might be kind of mentally in a different headspace, that you as the educator are in a different headspace? So what I thought I would do is do a part 2 to your Kehillah questions answered. So these are questions people asked right before and during the Passover seders. Now, these aren't the 4 questions Ma nishtana halayla hazeh, not those kinds of questions. These are just questions that people asked. So these are questions about Kehillah that are answered. They range from everything to from Zionism to how can we afford this, to a question about the song Chad Gadyah, to there's just a lot here. So I'm going to answer these questions and I'm going to give the answers as best as I can. And you know the drill. Maybe I'll just make some stuff up. Who knows? All right, let's set our covenant. Let's set our intentions. Oh, we had our 2 seders, and now we're in the mindset of Moadim L'Simcha, right? That we're in this joyous intermediary moment. Holcha Moed. Take a deep breath. Think about what the covenant are for you, your intentions. Are you connecting with Kehillah because we didn't see you at the Seder? Are you sitting in line at carpool? Are you going for a run? Is this something to distract you now that you're back at work? Whatever this for you could be, we're just glad that you're here. So for our covenant setting prayer, I'm going to use these words. Echad mi yodea, echad ani yodea, echad Eloheinu, shebashamayim v'haaretz. One, who knows one? One, I know one. One is our God who is in the heavens and the earth. Yep, echad mi yodea. Yep, so used a song from the Haggadah. Okay, but it works, right? What's great about this is that the song it builds up on itself. So you get Shnayim, Shalosha, Arba, Chamisha. So you get more and more and more as you go. It's kind of like Chad Gadyah, it builds on itself, which is kind of fun. But anyway, let's get into it. So first question, who did or did you cook the food? And the answer is yes, all the cooks. So in terms of how we did the food and beverage for the Passover Seder, it gets complicated because, most people don't keep kosher. Of course, kosher for Passover people will sort of become a little bit more orthoprax during that time, but you're also working with mixed company. So the kind of meeting point on this is that all the food was stored at our home, meaning like things like horseradish and karpas, like the parsley and all of that. So our refrigerator stored that until the day before. So anything that we weren't cooking but we were using was at our home, and then was driven to Commonwealth Autism. And shout out to Commonwealth Autism for providing us an amazing space. So that helped a little bit. And then the next thing is, well, but what about the actual cooking? So our home is kosher lepesach. Um, it is Sephardi and Mizrahi in its orientation, meaning that we eat kitniyot, so we eat beans and rice and things like that. But in the 10 years that I've been here, no one has ever asked me about kitniyot. So I've decided 10 years, that's a good line, that I'm never going to bring up the kitniyot thing ever again, because I'm the only one who cares to even think about it. So anyway, so we do have that. But all of the frozen meat, chicken, whatever, vegetables in the fridge, everything was stored at our house, which was a lot. But that's okay. And then the dry goods obviously stored in our pantry. And then in terms of how the menu was planned, shout out to Jessica Borda, who worked with me on thinking it through. She just kind of said yes, 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 which was kind of cool. But yeah, so all of that kind of figured out. In terms of a lot of the like vegetable items, and this is just kind of a good life hack, Rebbitzin and I went to Costco and we just looked at what was on sale, or not what was on sale, but like what was a good deal. So we just bought that, and then it was like an episode of Chopped where we just tried to figure out what would be the best thing we can do with the gifts that we've been provided. So went to Costco. Now, when I say gifts provided, I don't mean like Costco gave us food. I mean the gift of being fiscally responsible. So we bought peppers and, potatoes and just all kinds of other things. We just bought what was a good value, and then we built the recipes around that. Now, Suzanne McEwen. So shout out to Suzanne McEwen, because she did the matzo balls the second night and they were way better than the first night. So I feel like everyone who had the matzo ball soup the first night, that was me. And yeah, the matzo balls were totally rubbery. So we learned something from that. I had seen a catering hack where you could make matzo balls in advance and then just combine it together at the last second. That totally doesn't work. It's way too rubbery. Yeah, it's really something you have to do in advance. And so I joked with Suzanne about like we needed to rent a bubby, and man, she nailed it. So thank you so much, Suzanne, for that. So that's kind of how the food stuff came together. And then again, so going back to the Passover food restrictions, kashrut question. So everything was cooked that needed to be cooked. At my home. And then from there, we drove it to Commonwealth Autism. The ovens had already been turned on, pilot lights were already lit, whatever. And then we only used things that came from our home or that were new. So that was a way of kind of dealing with some of the kosher issues and things like that. Now, I will be the first to say, I know this is way beyond what anyone is asking of us, but I believe in a life of integrity. And, I would never want someone to come to me and say, well, can you explain how you did things, and have to say something that, was not going to live up to a standard that we promised. So yeah, was some of it a pain in the butt? Do I wish maybe we could have cooked things there? Part of me says yes, but then part of me says no, because I think it's trade-offs in life, right? So like everything that we had warming in the ovens was double wrapped in aluminum foil and blah, blah, blah. Way more from than anyone was asking, but it's the right thing to do. So that's that. Okay, so that's the food question. Recipes. So shout out to Nick, who was one of our hardcore volunteers. I think it was second night. He was asking about different recipes. If you ever want recipes for things that I make, or if you want to ask people, what they've made, whatever, and brought to things, then just like let me know and we'll hook you up. He was asking about the matzo ball soup. I think someone asked a question about the meatballs that I made. So yeah. So any questions you ever have about the food and stuff, you just let me know. Happy to answer that. Okay, so that was one question. And then that kind of bleeds into the whole thing about, is your home kosher and whatever. So let me kind of go. So there's kosher for Passover and who cooked the food. There's that question. Then there's like a bigger meta question of, is our personal home kosher, and what about other places that we use? So I'm trying to think. I don't know in a long time that we have used a commercial kitchen. I want to say the last time we used a commercial kitchen was 2019. So that was when we were renting a space that was being used for like food service and whatever. There's an exception to that, which is a couple years ago when we did a collaboration with Jufro of blessed memory, which is unfortunate. But we did a collaboration with them. Their restaurant was not kosher. So like that was an example of, using a space that wasn't kosher. And then, when you're in our home, or when we're cooking, like myself, Rebbitzin, people cooking in our home, the meat's going to be Empire Chicken or Teva or whatever kosher brand. All of the products used will be kosher. Pots and pans will be kosher. Meat and milk is separated. Have you ever noticed that I never serve meat and milk on a Shabbat? Probably not, because I don't like to point it out. Like it's just, like just have it be something that's incidental, right? It's kind of like those characters in TV shows where you find out they have some, attribute, like maybe they have a hidden disability, or they're LGBTQ plus, or they're multiracial. And it's just one of those things that makes the character more interesting because it's part of who they are as an interesting character, but it's not the number one thing that's put out front. That's how I feel about kashrut. It's just a thing in our home, but like it's not something that is what defines us. It's not something that makes us interesting. I think the community and our values and how we live those values is way more interesting than like which fork do we eat with. Whatever. Anyway, so other places we use are not kosher. So like Commonwealth Autism is not, but you have ways of working around these things. So that's kind of the story there, and it's an evolving conversation. We don't have an official sort of kashrut policy per se. We just kind of do what works. Based on where we are. So when we have a home hosted Shabbat, if the home's not kosher, the home's not kosher, right? It is what it is. Which then I actually kind of leads into a really random question that seems like it wouldn't make sense in this context. But I'm going to give this question too. So this question of like policies, right? Like what are your policies? What are your positions? Things like that. So right before the Passover Seder, we were asked, is Kehillah Zionist? And get asked this question like every event, or I should say before every event, always on Reddit, or someone from Reddit, or some other person researching through social media will ask this question about Kehillah and Zionism. So, similar type of idea to kashrut, right? I think once in 10 years, I've been at maybe twice in 10 years since I've lived here, not even since Kehillah, because Kehillah is 8 years old. So let's say in 8 years. In 8 years, I think I've been asked once or twice, if an event is going to be kosher. Like who's the mashgiach, who's the kosher supervisor, blah, 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 blah. So there's that. And then every major holiday, if not every single holiday event that we do, I will get a question about Kehillah and Zionism. And again, always from people on the internet, usually Reddit, or something like that, sometimes Instagram, whatever. So same exact policy as kashrut, right? So I have my beliefs, my values, they're important to me. Other people have different beliefs and values. If you follow me on social media, you know what I believe. If you follow other Kehillah members, you know what they believe. Broadly speaking, I mean, I've been to Israel. I have friends who live in Israel. I have friends who are moving to Israel. And their values are mine. So that's how I feel about them, and that's how I feel about that. At the same time, it's like anything else in life. I often, this is a personal thing, I'm very good at upsetting extremes. Like I'm very good at being the person in the middle who has complicated feelings and therefore upsets people who want simple answers. And I tell you, sometimes when I reflect on it, I don't really wish this, but I think it would be interesting if I was someone who just held an extreme position on most things. Like there are things that I do, I guess, hold very strong positions on, but I don't fit well into any particular group. And this is true of Zionism. This is true of like going back to kashrut. This is true of minhagim. Like I'm just a person who's very comfortable in a lot of spaces and can see the good in most things and can also see what's rotten in most things. That's just the way I'm oriented. So I have my beliefs. They're what they are. You're welcome to ask me. Other people have their beliefs. And, if you're friends or you're comfortable, you have a relationship with them, ask them. Kehillah does not do this kind of positions business, right? That's like not our thing, right? Because we're an open community. Kehillah literally is the word community. So what am I supposed to do with that? Do I like poll every single person and then whoever, votes the most wins? Or like, is it an individual conversation with everybody? And then you find the through line, and then that's your position. Like, it's not a political party. And I don't know. Maybe this is the thing I'll get in trouble for saying, but I think that religion today is in service to the state, whereas for most of human history, the state has been in service to religion. And I think that's dangerous. I'm a big believer in the Johnson Amendment, even though that's something that is being dialed back and reinterpreted quite a bit. I think that's for the negative. And so, yeah, so it'll often feel like I don't talk enough about one thing or another. Years ago, this is so great. I may have actually told this story before. Years ago, in the same day, I got an email from one person that said, I need you to stand up for the Palestinians. And then I got another email that said, why don't you talk enough about Israel? It's like, what do you do? What do you do? You're never going to make people happy. As a spiritual leader, when I realized it wasn't my job to make everyone happy or satisfied, maybe is a better word, everyone satisfied all the time with everything, the weight lifted off my shoulders. And, we've tried things too. Like I remember when we did that event that I've talked about before, right after October 7th, where we got people to kind of talk with each other. And there was one person who refused to come because they said they weren't going to litigate their opinions. And I was like, well, so now you're saying that you don't have to speak about what you believe and you don't have to listen to what others believe. And that's dangerous. So anyway, I know that doesn't exactly answer the question because, by the way, there is no question. No answer to that question because it's not a question that we have, right? The things we focus on are different. If you want to have a pluralistic community, it means everybody's got to listen to everybody. And the Talmud says that's what makes for wise people. So that's good. Okay. Moving on to other complicated issues. So, where is our building? I've talked about this so many times on the podcast. I'm not going to bother to like really answer the question. You have to go back a few episodes, maybe all the way back to the beginning, even to learn about why we don't have a building, why we've made that deliberate choice. Part of it is that it's just dang expensive, right? And that's not a priority that most people in our community have. Having said that, I got to tell you, I'm going to be perfectly honest. The venue search thing is like a nightmare. It's a constant, you're just always on the lookout for where is a place that you can do something. Is it affordable? And remembering too that like the spaces we use, those are other people's property. So yes, we do have to mop the floor. Yes, we do need to, pick up after ourselves and, no, we can't just leave things as they are because we're going to use the space tomorrow, let's say. Like that's someone else's home, whether it actually is a home or it's an office building or it's a nonprofit or whatever. So, and I'm reminded every holiday or every big event that we have of that pro con of on one hand, yeah, like if it was our ballroom, let's say, yeah, you could leave all the tables set up. And yeah, that would save you 15 minutes, the next event that you have coming up. Also, you got to pay for the roof. So those are just sort of some of the things. It's interesting that over the years, people are way more comfortable with that answer now. I remember when we first got started, people thought there was a legitimacy problem. And it's starting to change. Again, you'd have to go back to the episode called like Day in the Life of a Rabbi, and you can hear my thoughts on real estate. Because even though, yeah, we don't have a space, would I love one? Absolutely. Would it be a nightmare? Absolutely. Would we love it anyway? Probably. Pros and cons to everything in life, people. Okay. Let's move on to this one. Okay, I gotta have a sip of water for this. Okay. Do you have more tickets, Rabbi? Do you have more tickets? We got more tickets? Can we have some more tickets? Yeah. So if you're someone who asked this question, you probably think, oh, Rabbi's only talking about me. I'm being called out. Nope, not at all. We love you very much because there's a lot of the yous. So here's the thing about tickets. Basically, you put out an event, and the people who are the sort of, I don't know what you want to call them, but like the early, not early adopters, I don't know what the right word is, the early birds, let's say. The early birds will RSVP whether they're coming or not. And so this is actually sometimes a difficult conversation because if you have a limited number of seats, let's say, right? So like for Pesach, we had a limited number of seats. We had a limited number of physical places we could put people. You know, as much as we might love that Jew knocking at the door and saying, please, please, please help me. If I don't have somewhere for you to sit, I can't sell you a seat or give you one for that matter. So that kind of stuff is tricky. So there will be people who will RSVP and then no show. And like that's just their custom. Like they do that. They see it like fundraising and also hedging their bets. That they might be able to come or not. So sometimes you sort of have to play this game of like, okay, let's assume they're coming, but then, whatever percent chance they can't make it. And usually that's 20. Just a rule of thumb. This is good for people who are planning events. Like if you're planning a wedding, let's say, and you invite 100 people, I assure you that 20 of them can't come. Like they just can't. There's a 20% rule, basically, that's how many people for an inexpensive event, like a $20, like a Shabbat, let's say, if we have a Shabbat with 20 people, somewhere in the 17-ish range will come, even if they bought a ticket, because that's just life. Like the dog gets sick or the babysitter flakes or whatever. So you always have that. So that's kind of a built-in thing that sometimes helps with giving people tickets. So you have the early birds. Then you have this gulf of time between the early birds and the last minute people where it's just wait, bam. Okay. Now, if you're me, and you're the volunteers at Kehillah, et cetera, you do a pretty good job of filling up that time in the middle where you reach out to people directly and you say, hey, I know you, I love you, I see you, you're going to want a ticket, you're going to ask at the last second. Again, we love you. Let's go ahead and knock that out. And people really appreciate that. And you can't do that for everybody. That's impossible. Like there's 1,200 people on this email list. That's way too much. But sometimes you can do that. So you can kind of like tell people, hey, there's an event coming up. Please do me a favor here. And they'll RSVP. So then you get right to the very end. And this year was interesting because we kind of hit it pretty hard there at the end and didn't have tickets left. And then some of the people, again, it's that 20% that you sometimes luck out at the end. If they can't come, you can throw tickets to other people. But the Rabbi, do you have tickets thing? That's a very common question for most events. So there you go. Now, this is a question from my mother. Do you have volunteers who help? The answer is yes, thank God. It is so amazing to have all of you who volunteer. And like, I'm not even going to get everybody right. And, and I'm sorry, we have like main volunteers who show up, they sign up to volunteer. So I have that list, but I know there's people that look, they go to different tables and they help clean up before they leave and things like that. And you don't get recognized. And I'm really sorry about that. But just to sort of shout out the people who signed up to volunteer. First of all, Jessica, thank you. Jacob and Suzanne helping me in the kitchen. Thank you. Pam, Jantique, Joe, Terry, Austin and Brittany. Just thank you. Nick was, one of these people who, just kind of put in some brute strength. Adina, just thank you. Your help. It's just so much. I don't even know what to say. So thank you to all of you. Thank you for the people who, didn't sign up formally, but, were incredibly helpful. It really means a lot to me. So Mom, we do have volunteers. And yeah, I tell you, sometimes I feel bad because the things that we need help with, I don't think are particularly fun, right? But people have fun. That's pretty cool. Okay, now along a similar line of like, do you have people who help? There's then a question of about the events, and people know we have events coming up, whatever, or they know kind of what Kehillah is and what we do, and so sometimes people get really inspired at different kinds of events, and they'll ask a question that starts with, "Will you? Can we? Is there?" Will you, can we, is there, because you're inspired in the moment and you want to move on to that next thing. So, will you have another event like this? Can we do a such and such? Is there a group for yada yada? And I love that inspiration in the moment. And sometimes, like in part of my heart, I worry that I don't answer those questions well because I'm like a lunatic running around and trying to talk to people. I have a personal belief that at every event, I need to talk to everyone 3 times, right? Even if it's just a, "Hey, are you having fun? Hey, nice to meet you," whatever. It's just that's a value that I hold. That means though that when someone comes up to me and wants to have a more lengthy conversation, I'm not as present as I wish I could be. So sometimes people will ask like the "will you, can we" is there. And usually at like a Shabbat or something, I can be pretty good there. When you get to 30 or more people, like I don't have that in me. So I try to make sure to, and this is something I need to do right now, is follow up with people and let people know about things that we have coming up, the things, we will do, that we can do, that we need help for, all of that. Another thing that sometimes happens in bigger events is that people get really inspired. So they look around and they see, it's Hanukkah or Pesach or whatever, and they get filled with this kind of joy about, oh, I'd love to, see more of such and such. And then they just want to know, like, is that something that we could do together, whatever. And I always say, if there's something that you're inspired towards, just send me an email. Like, that would be so cool. Send me an email. Um, Often, and it's a little disappointing, people feel really inspired in the moment, but then when they know that whatever that thing is, they would need to take lead on. And certainly we would be supportive and we'd give them whatever resources they need and we would promote whatever that thing is or whatever. And oftentimes those things fall apart or they just take a long time to actualize. And so sometimes that can be a little disappointing. But anything that's will you or can we, I always say, like, let's do it. Cool. Why not? With very few exceptions. But it does take that leadership and it takes a certain amount of executive function that, sometimes people just don't have that in their lives at that moment. Now, a third version of that is there. Is there is a pretty yes no type of thing. And there's a few of these things that I wish we had that I could say yes we do. And they're things that I am sort of passionate about, things I'd love to see happen. So I'm going to go on vacation for 2 weeks, and maybe that'll stew in my brain, and I can come up with some ways that I would want to spearhead some of that. Because those are things that I'm interested in, and so what we could do is we could find people to do elements of my job that I don't need to do, and then I can maybe take some of that stuff on. So the answer is, will you, can we, is there? The answer is, yeah, we can. So, but you have to do it. Okay. Now, the next question. The angel of death. Chagadya, Chagadya. Thank you, Eitan Khan, for this question. So, in that song, which you sing basically like at the end of the seder, it's an only kid my father bought for 2 zuzim, and it's this progression. And it gets to the end where like all of these like beating the cat and bit the dog and what like all these weird all these weird things that happen at the end you get and then came the angel of death. And we have a thing, Robin and I, shout out to Robin, yet another person who helped quite a lot. We have this thing where she and I skip almost all of it and we just go right to the angel of death part. And so Eitan asked a very interesting question, which is, in Judaism, we kind of think of the angel of death, at least in the Pesach Seder, as being our friend, right? Because as much as we don't want the slaying of the firstborn, it sounds so rough, the angel of death was remarkable part was one of the signs and wonders that led to us being liberated from Egypt. So why would we have this song? So my answer that I gave Eitan ended up being right because I gave the answer that I sort of knew, but wasn't actually sure 100%. Sometimes that happens. Like you know things, but you don't know why you know them, and you might be more comfortable looking them up. But you can't do that when people are walking out the door and they're asking you a question. So here's the answer about why the angel of death appears at the end. And this is also corroborated by Rabbi Jonathan Sacks, which is that in that song, you have all of these forms of death, injury, whatever. And then at the end, you have the ultimate sort of wiping the slate clean with the angel of death. But then the angel of death is destroyed. And that's because the song is about chaos, right? This thing that happens, then this thing that happens, then this thing that happens, then this thing that happens. It's like a chaotic ruckus song. And so the end with the angel of death being destroyed by God is a bit of a nod to God's desire to end chaos and to bring about a messianic era, the lion laying down with the lamb and swords being turned into plowshares and, sort of things like that. So that's why that's included in the end, is the idea that, chaos will one day end. And the angel of death will essentially be retired at that point. It turns out my answer was right, so I'm glad about that. So anyway, that's that. Thank you, Eitan, for asking that question. Okay, this question: how can you afford this? How can you afford this? And I guess it's kind of a weird thing to put into this podcast because you've already heard the little snippet about donating, and I've already talked about this before in other podcasts. But it's one of the questions I was asked. So, and the answer is we can afford it because you buy tickets and because you donate. Because again, events don't make money. We lose money at every event, or we break even at best, or maybe we luck out a little bit. If it weren't for those donations, which prop up our ability to be a congregation, it just wouldn't work. The tickets exist just to cover as much of it as we can, and also the ticket thing is a bit of a breach. It's a covenant, right? Because you're saying yes, I'm invested in this particular Jewish experience, and I'm willing to give my time, my talent, and my treasure to make sure that it happens. So that's really, I think, a big part of it. And then when you get into what it means to give, you're giving based on your values, and you're giving based on where you are in life, whether that's $5 or $500. So how can we afford this? Because of you. No big grants, no big donors, no big something somewhere. It's you. It's the person who's listening to this podcast right now. Now, another thing that happens whenever we have an event, this goes back to the can you, will you, whatever. How often do you have events? Is there something coming up? How do I know what's going on? So it's email, right? That's how you know what's going on. But I recognize that more and more people hate email, and more people want text messages. However, they also hate text messages. So this is where I'm like, are we just going to go full circle and suddenly we're going to have to print calendars? I don't know, but that wouldn't work because you need to be able to change things in the moment and whatever. So that's kind of that. So we always tell people when you RSVP, whatever email address you use to RSVP is going to be put on an email list. If you give your phone number, it'll be put on the SMS if you consent to it. And that's how you'll know about things that are coming up. Now, how do we schedule the events? I talked about this in a previous podcast episode, but we do that based on a lot of the life cycle schedule. So we have the holidays, and those are what they are. They come when they come. Sometimes you're partying on a Monday. It is what it is. Then you have the life cycles that I've been asked to do. We set aside a certain amount of time for that. And then what fills up from there are things like Shabbat and learning opportunities and communal things, sort of things like that. So that's how all of that's decided, and it's decided in 6-month chunks. That way, if we have an event or we have a holiday or whatever, and a couple comes to me for a wedding, I can say, whether I'm available or not. Sometimes things get moved. This is a disadvantage of not having your own space, is that sometimes, an organization or a company or whatever, they have different needs. Sometimes you have to bump stuff. Sometimes people aren't interested in something. You put something out in the world and you hope it'll stick, and it just doesn't happen. So we had an event that we were working on, Jessica and I, that was going to be this Passover sort of family experience. We were going to have these seder to go kits, et cetera, et cetera. We had like 2 people who RSVP'd for that. That was a free event. So recognizing that part of the issue was that it was going to be during a weekday. I think it was during a weekday. And also it was going to be spring break. So like things happen. I don't choose when, Chesterfield schools go on spring break. So that was part of the issue too. So that's kind of some of the calculus on events and things like that. So those are the questions. That's what people asked. So I hope that you enjoyed just kind of a little something light today. And I'll tell you a little bit about what we do have coming up along the lines of, what's coming up next. So here we go. May 1st, Shabbat dinner and service at Second Arrow. Very excited about that. That's Friday, May 1st at 6 p.m. Then we have a Shabbat Shavuot. Ooh, and it is the Mount Sinai Mountain of Ice Cream. So excited about that. Friday, May 22nd at Art Factory. So something north of the river, something south of the river. Listen, that one's free, okay? You're going to come. There's going to be pizza, going to be salad. There's going to be some like game activity, whatever stuff for kids. But the most important thing is the gigantic mountain of ice cream. And we'll have the bookstore too. Like we'll be giving away free books because that's kind of a Shavuot tradition that we have. So we'll have the mountain of ice cream, and I'll tell the story of, Mount Sinai and Moshe Rabbeinu and the 10 Commandments. Moses will be a Keebler elf. The Israelites will be little gummy bears. Oh my gosh, it is so freaking fun. I'm so excited about that. Anyway, so we'll celebrate Shabbat together. We'll have the Mount Sinai Mountain of Ice Cream. That's going to be great. Again, May 22nd at Art Factory. And then to round out May 29th, we're going to have a Shabbat dinner at Brittney and Austin's house. And so this is a bit of a collaboration between Brittney and Edva, who want to celebrate different Jewish foods that connect with personal histories, right? So you have people who, come from different types of Jewish backgrounds. They have different food ways, and the Jewish people, being a diaspora and ethnic people, have different cuisines that represent Jewish identity for them. So they're going to cook like crazy, and we're going to bring stuff too. So you're welcome to help collaborate. I will get you in touch if you want to help Brittney and Edva with making this happen. It's going to be great. So that's just a straight up dinner. This is going to be in Midlothian, Brittney and Austin's house, Friday, May 29th. Very excited about that. Tickets for all of these things are up on the website. So if you want to grab those, do it now. And, I just gave you the 411 on how tickets work, guys. So please help us out. It really means a lot to have your help. Also, looking forward to June. So June is Pride Month. And even though we have Pride in Virginia, like in September, that's a whole other thing. Technically, June is Pride Month. So we're going to be doing Pride Month stuff that I'm very excited about. Working with the JCC, with J-Hub Next Gen. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be really, really exciting stuff. So anyway, more info on that as we get closer to the date. But for now, make sure to check out the Shabbat dinner and service at Second Arrow, the Shabbat Shavuot dinner with the Mount Sinai Mountain of Ice Cream, and of course, Shabbat dinner at Brittney and Edva. So 3 dinners, I guess 1.5 services. It's going to be great. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. I hope you'll be supportive, and I hope that wherever you are in life, Kehillah's part of your life. Thank you so much. Let's talk about Second Arrow. If you are in Churchill or if you're anywhere, you need to know about our good friends at Second Arrow. They are your advocates. They are your coach, your inspiration, your reality check. They will take the time to actually see you and hear you, and they're pretty funny too. If you're still finding your way with physical therapy and yoga, you can do a one-on-one evaluation. Or if you're ready to just do this thing, you can go on the website and of course they will get you all set up. We are huge fans of Second Arrow, and that's not just because we use their space. We have congregants who love them and actually found out about us through them. So thank you, Second Arrow, for making that happen. They're blending the ancient movements of yoga and the hard science physical therapy to treat pain, prevent injury, and transition you to a safe, active lifestyle. There is nothing like bodyweight challenges to promote lifelong strength, mobility, endurance, and function. And they also have this cute little coffee shop thing going. It's like a self-service coffee shop. Yeah, it's pretty cool. You should check it out. Anyway, please go to secondarrowrva.com. That's secondarrowrva.com. Check them out, 2200 Carrington Street, right here in beautiful Churchill.